Good day, dear students. Today I'm going to talk about testing. In this slide, I would like to talk about some types of tests and testing. According to the purpose, there are distinguished four tests: proficiency, achievement, placement, and diagnostic tests. The purpose of proficiency tests is to measure people's language ability regardless to any training they have had, based on a specification of what candidates have to be able to do. Proficient. As example of such proficiency tests, we can name TOEFL, IELTS, CAA. The next type of the test is achievement test. The purpose of this is directly related to language courses to measure how successful students' courses have been in achieving objectives. And as example, we can give end of the term test, final test, midterm test, and so on. The next, placement test. The purpose of it to provide information that helps place students at the stage of the teaching program most appropriate to their abilities. It can be a test by language link for new students enrolling in their courses, it may be interview, and so on. And diagnostic test, its purpose to identify students' strengths and weaknesses. It can be 15 minutes surprise mini test by a teacher for students. Testing language has traditionally taken the form of testing knowledge about language, usually the testing of knowledge of vocabulary and grammar. The first test is achievement. The achievement test, also referred to as attainment or summative test, are devised to measure how much of a language someone has learned with reference to a particular course of study or program of instruction. For example, end-of-year test designed to show mastery of a language. An achievement test might be a listening comprehension test based on a particular set of situational dialogues in a textbook. The test has a twofold objective. The first one, to help the student judge the success of their teacher. The second one, to identify the weakness of the learners. In more practical and pedagogical terms, Brown defined the achievement test as a test they are limited to particular material covered in a curriculum within a particular time frame. In other words, they are designed primarily to measure individual progress rather than as a means of motivating and reinforcing language. Ideally, achievement tests are rarely constructed by classroom teacher for a particular class. The second type is closed test. The closed test, also alternately referred to a closed procedure, consists of a set of techniques for measuring, for example, reading comprehension. In a closed test, words are removed from a reading passage at regular intervals, leaving blanks. For example, every fifth word may be removed. The reader must then read the passage and try to guess the missing words. The third type is diagnostic test. As its name denotes, a diagnostic test is primarily designed to diagnose some particular linguistic aspects. Diagnostic tests in pronunciation, for example, might have the purpose of determining which particular phonological features of the English language are more likely to pose problems and difficulties for a group of learners. One of the well-known diagnostic tests in English is Prater's diagnostic passage. It consists of a short written passage that the learner reads orally. The teacher then examines a tape recording of that reading against a very detailed checklist of pronunciation errors. Basically, diagnostic language tests have threefold objectives. The first one is to provide learners with a way to start learning with their own personal learning program, or what would be called in the literature of testing learning paths. The second objective is to provide learners with a way to test their knowledge of a language. And the last objective is to provide learners with better information about their strengths and weaknesses. The first type is discrete point test, which also called discrete item test, is a language test which measures knowledge of individual language items such as grammar test, which has different sections on tenses, adverbs, and prepositions. Discrete point tests are based on the theory that language consists of different parts such as speech sounds, grammar, and vocabulary, and different skills such as listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and these are made of elements that can be tested separately. Tests consisting of multiple choice questions are usually regarded to discrete point tests. Discrete point tests are all too often contrasted with what are called integrative tests. An integrative test is one which requires a learner to use several skills at the same time. An essay writing is an integrative test because it learns heavily on the knowledge of grammar, vocabulary, and rules of discourse. A dictation is also an integrative test as it requires knowledge of grammar, vocabulary, and listening and comprehension skills. The next type is language aptitude test. Before one ventures into defining what a language aptitude test is, it would be wiser to start first by defining what a language aptitude is. Language aptitude is a hybrid concept, part linguistic and part psychological, refers to the genuine ability one endowed with to learn a language. It's thought to be a combination of several abilities. The first ability is phonological, which is ability to detect phonetic differences, for example, stress, intonation, vowel quality in a new language. The second ability is syntactic. Its ability to recognize the different grammatical functions of words in the sentences. The third ability is psychological, which is rote learning ability and ability to make inferences in inductive learning. The sixth type of test is placement test, which its name implies is originally designed to place learners at an appropriate level in a program of course. The term placement test, as Richard and others note, does not refer to what the test contains and how it's constructed, but to the purpose for which it used. Various types of or testing procedures such as dictation, interview, or grammar test, for example, discrete or integrative, can be used for placement purposes. And the English placement test, EPT, which is a well-known test in America, is an illustrative example of this test type. The EPT is designed to assess the level of reading and writing skills of entering undergraduate students so that they can be placed in appropriate courses. Those undergraduate students who do not demonstrate college or university level skills will be directed to remedial courses or programs to help them attain these skills. The seventh is Proficiency Test, which is devised to measure how much of a language someone has learned. It's not linked to any particular course of instruction, but measures the learner's general level of language mastery. Most English language proficiency tests base their testing items on high-frequency count vocabulary and general basic grammar. Some proficiency tests have been standardized for worldwide use, such as well-known American test TOEFL English language proficiency tests like ALPT, which are used to measure the English language proficiency of foreign students intending further study at English-speaking institutions, namely the USA. The next type is progress test, which is an achievement-like test. It's closely related to a particular set of teaching materials or a particular course of instruction. Progress tests are usually administered at the end of the unit, a course, or term. A progress test may be viewed as similar to an achievement test, but much narrower and much more specific in scope. They help examiners in general and language teachers in particular to assess the degree of success of their programs and teaching, and therefore to identify their shortcomings and weaknesses respectively. Progress tests can also be diagnostic to some degree, in the sense that they help identify areas of difficulties encountered by learners in general.